Hello, my name is Julian Gutierrez. I'm in your biology class, and today going over the project we have on light-dependent reaction of photosynthesis. So I'll start with what is photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process in which plants and some other organisms like bacteria use sunlight to synthesize foods from carbon dioxide and water. When discussing photosynthesis in plants, it includes green pigment, chlorophyll, and mix oxygen. So essentially, carbon dioxide and water is needed along with sunlight to produce oxygen or carbohydrates for living organisms to live off of. This is one of the pictures that I drew showing the sun and the plant and kind of the process of photosynthesis of a plant. So the sunlight, hitting the plant and the CO2 entering through the leaves, and also the H2O, from the rain or the moisture goes in the ground and goes through the roots. So the combination of these atoms, the carbon dioxide and the H2O, that's what in turn in the end will produce oxygen and carbohydrates. And like I said previously, carbohydrates and oxygen create life. We need oxygen, carbohydrates as well, but animals mainly benefit off the oxygen and carbohydrates from the plants as well. This is the other picture I drew showing the chloroplast. The left side, the circular part, is the chloroplast, and the line going across to the rectangle is a zoomed in picture of the chloroplast. The drawing isn't that great, but I tried my hardest. So inside the chloroplast, you see the thylakoid membrane, which is in the top right corner, that kind of has the heart-shaped up top. You also see, and this is where the ATP process is, and the electron transport chain, which we'll go over later on in the slides. So the thylakoid membrane is, like I said, that odd-shaped drawing that I did in the top right corner. Should have labeled it a little bit more to the right, but right in the top right corner. This is where, in the thylakoid membrane, is where the light-induced photosynthesis begins. And then the photosystems in the thylakoid membrane take in sunlight from the structured proteins throughout the chloroplast. This sunlight is then transferred into energy, which can be used by the plant, to produce the oxygen, to produce the carbohydrates. That's what's needed. The plant takes in CO2 and H2O. Like I said previously, the plant takes in the CO2 from the leaves, and the H2O comes from the roots. And that's when the photosystems begin, is when both of those are taken into the plant. H2O in the plant oxidizes, in which the plant loses electrons, but the CO2 gains electrons in the process as well, resulting in the H2O becomes oxygen and the CO2 becomes sugar, glucose, essentially carbohydrate, which is stored for later on use um, in the plant. As mentioned previously, the electron transport chain, you can see that those two small rows of small circles, in between there is the electron transport chain, which leads to the thylakoid membrane. The hydrogen ions pass through the thylakoid membrane, which are received from the outside through a protein complex called ATP synthase. So essentially the hydrogen atoms become ATP, and the ATP powers the cell completely. NADP and H hydrogen plus ions. This occurs from outside the thylakoid membrane, then through the thylakoid membrane. So it gets essentially transferred, through the chloroplast into the thylakoid membrane. When two H plus ions are combined, it creates and releases oxygen atoms. And it won't until the two are combined. The full process of NADP is the CO2, the carbon dioxide, comes into the plant through the leaves, then releases again to the H plus ions, which makes oxygen. So that is the complete NADP process. And that's vital to life and us staying existent, essentially, because we all need oxygen. So I thought it was pretty interesting learning that part of it. So in conclusion, for the light-dependent reaction of photosynthesis to work, all these steps need to work. The CO2 coming through the leaves, the H2O going up through the root to produce in the plant, and also the electrons being passed through the electron transport chain. The thylakoid membrane needs to do its job in the whole process. If they don't, then the oxygen and carbohydrates won't be produced. In turn, it means most of life on Earth wouldn't exist. That might sound extreme, but that's kind of my view on it, because essentially, those are the two key vital parts of living organisms in our world on Earth is oxygen and carbohydrates for energy. After doing this project, the NADP and photosynthesis to me is the most important part of life. This makes me want to protect our environment even more, to protect all living organisms and this natural phenomenon. I had a really fun time doing this project, and I learned a lot with the combination of the lectures and also just researching to get this PowerPoint completed. So I hope you guys learned a lot as well. Thank you so much.